My parents looked at me with absolute disgust as I begged them to believe me, but they slammed the front door in my face, leaving me homeless at 18. They thought they had cleansed the family of a thief, but they didn't know Grandpa Arthur was watching, and he had the tapes. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The sound of the zipper tearing open on my backpack sounded like a gunshot in the silent living room. I stood frozen by the entryway, my car keys still clutched in my hand, my work apron draped over my other arm. I had just walked in from a 6-hour shift at the coffee shop, smelling like stale espresso and burnt milk, expecting nothing more than a reheated dinner and maybe an hour of studying before bed. Instead, I walked into an ambush. My father was standing over my school bag, which he had dumped onto the pristine white carpet. My textbooks, my crushed gym clothes, and my pencil case were scattered, but that wasn't what he was looking at. In the center of the pile, glowing under the recessed lighting, was a thick, rubber-banded stack of cash. "Dad," I asked, my voice trembling, what are you doing?" He didn't look at me. Not yet. He just stared at the money. My mother was sitting on the sofa, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. And there, sitting in the armchair with his knees pulled up to his chest, looking like a terrified child, was my 16-year-old brother, Caleb. "I didn't want to believe it," my father said, his voice terrifyingly quiet. He finally looked up, and the look in his eyes wasn't anger. It was something far worse. It was loathing. "Caleb told us he saw you fumbling with the safe code earlier. He said he saw you putting something in your bag. I told him he was crazy. I told him my daughter, my Jane, would never steal from this family." I did. I dropped my keys. They hit the floor with a jingle that made my mother flinch. "Dad, I haven't been home all day. I went straight to school, then straight to work. Check my time card. Check the GPS on my phone." "Stop it," he roared, stepping over the pile of books to get in my face. "Just stop lying. The money is right there, Jane, right there in your bag. $5,000. That was the emergency fund. That was for the house repairs." I looked at the money, my brain spinning, trying to find purchase on reality. I have never seen that money in my life. Someone put it there. My gaze snapped to Caleb. He was watching me through the gaps in his fingers. He wasn't crying. I knew my brother better than anyone. I knew his tells. His leg was bouncing, a nervous tick he only had when he was trying to suppress a grin. "Caleb," I said, my voice hardening, tell them you put it there." "Why would I steal our parents' money?" Caleb whined, his voice pitching up into that innocent, helpless tone he had perfected over the years. "I don't need money, Jane. You're the one who's always complaining about saving for college. You're the one who said you'd do anything to get out of this house." "I said I wanted to move into a dorm," I screamed. "I didn't say I was going to rob my own parents." "Enough," my mother stood up, her face red and blotchy. She walked over to me, and for a second I thought she was going to hug me or ask for my side of the story. Instead, she pointed a shaking finger at the door. "We gave you everything," she whispered, the venom in her voice making me recoil. "We trusted you, and you steal from us, you betray us like this." "Mom, please, just look at the facts." "The facts are on the floor," my father shouted. He grabbed my arm, his grip bruising. "Get out." "What?" "You heard me. Get out. I will not have a thief under my roof. I will not sleep knowing you are in the next room, waiting to take whatever else isn't nailed down." "Dad, it's 10 o'clock at night. Where am I supposed to go?" Tears finally spilled over, hot and stinging on my cheeks. "Please, just listen to me." He didn't listen. He dragged me toward the door, shoving my backpack into my chest, minus the cash, which he had snatched up. He opened the heavy oak door and pushed me out onto the porch. The night air was biting cold, a stark contrast to the heated argument inside. "Don't come back until you're ready to confess and pay us back for the emotional damage you've caused this family," he spat. "Dad, please." The door slammed shut. The deadbolt clicked. I stood there, shivering in my thin work shirt, staring at the wood grain of the door that had protected me my entire life. I could hear Caleb inside. He was saying something soft, comforting, probably reassuring them that they did the right thing. The betrayal was worse than the cold. It felt like my heart had been fizzy. Collie ripped out of my chest and locked inside that house with the people who were supposed to love me. The walk to the bus station took 40 minutes. I didn't have a car. The car keys I had dropped were for the family sedan I was allowed to use for work, but my father had snatched those off the floor before kicking me out. So I walked. We lived in a suburb that was designed for cars, not pedestrians. There were no sidewalks for the first 2 miles, so I trudged through the wet grass on the shoulder of the road, hugging my jacket tight around me. Every time a pair of headlights swept over me, I flinched, half hoping it was my parents coming to their senses, and half terrified it was a stranger with bad intentions. It wasn't my parents, it never was. By the time I reached the downtown bus terminal, my canvas sneakers were soaked through, and my toes were numb. The station was a grim, fluorescent-lit purgatory of gray tiles and plastic bucket seats. It smelled of industrial cleaner and damp wool. I found a seat in the corner, away from the few other stragglers who looked as desperate as I felt. I pulled my knees up to my chest, trying to preserve body heat, and checked my phone. 14% battery. I had 3 missed calls from my best friend, Sarah, but I couldn't bring myself to answer them. I was too ashamed. How do you explain that your parents threw you out like garbage because your little brother framed you? It sounded insane. It sounded like a lie. I scrolled through my contacts until my thumb hovered over Pops. My grandfather, Arthur. He lived 3 towns over. He was a hard man, a retired structural engineer who didn't believe in sugarcoating things. He and my father had a strained relationship because Pops thought my dad was soft and Dad thought Pops was a relic. I pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Jane, his voice was gravelly, thick with sleep. It's nearly midnight. Is everything all right? I tried to speak, but the dam broke. I let out a choked sob that echoed in the empty station. Jane, talk to me. Where are you? I'm at the downtown station, I managed to stutter. Dad kicked me out. They think I stole money. Pops, I didn't do it. I swear on my life I didn't do it. There was a silence on the other end. A long, heavy pause that made my stomach twist. Did he believe them too? Was I completely alone? Stay put, he said finally. His tone had shifted. The sleep was gone, replaced by the sharp, metallic edge of command. I'm getting in the truck. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Do not move. Do not talk to anyone. Okay, I whispered. And Jane? Yeah. Did Caleb have anything to do with this? I hesitated. He said he saw me. He told them. I see, Pop said. I could hear the rustle of him grabbing his coat. Your father is a fool and your brother is a liar, but they've both forgotten something very important. What? I sniffled, wiping my nose on my sleeve. They forgot that I helped install the security system in that house 10 years ago, Pop said, his voice dropping to a low rumble. And they forgot that I never trust a system I can't check myself. He hung up. I stared at the phone, the screen going black. I didn't know what he meant, not fully. I knew we had an alarm system, but as far as I knew, we didn't have cameras inside the house, just the doorbell and the garage. But as I sat there, shivering under the flickering lights of the bus station, that one cryptic sentence gave me something I hadn't had an hour ago. Hope. To understand why my parents believed Caleb over me, you have to understand the dynamic of our house. I was the experiment. As the firstborn, my parents were strict with me. Every grade was scrutinized, every curfew was enforced to the minute. I had to work for everything I had. I started babysitting at 12, tutoring at 14, and working at the coffee shop the day I turned 16. My parents called it building character. Caleb, on the other hand, was the masterpiece. By the time he was born, my parents were wealthier, more tired, and significantly more lenient. If I got a B in math, I was grounded. If Caleb failed a test, the teacher was incompetent, and they hired a private tutor. If I wanted a car, I had to save up. When Caleb turned 16 last month, they bought him a brand new gaming setup worth $3,000 just because he asked nicely. For years, I had covered for him. I was the one who helped him with his homework so he wouldn't fail. I was the one who cleaned up his messes in the kitchen before Mom got home so she wouldn't yell. I loved him. He was my little brother. I thought that deep down, despite the spoiling, he was a good kid. I was wrong. Pops picked me up in his battered pickup truck just as the station security guard was starting to eye me suspiciously. I climbed into the passenger seat, the heat blasting from the vents, and finally felt my muscles unlock. Hey. Ops didn't hug me. He wasn't a hugger. He just handed me a thermos of hot tea and put the truck in gear. Talk, he said, from the beginning. I told him everything. The ambush, the money in the bag, the look on Caleb's face. He's been acting weird for weeks, I admitted, sipping the tea. He's been hanging out with these new kids, seniors, guys who drive flashy cars and skip class. I asked him about it, and he told me to mind my own business. I think he owed them money. Pops grunted, his eyes fixed on the road. $5,000 is a lot of money for a 16-year-old to owe. I know, that's why I think he panicked. He took it from the safe, he knows the code because he watches Dad open it, and when he realized he couldn't hide the missing cash, he framed me. It fits, Pop said. He tapped the steering wheel. Your father, though, to throw you out without a second thought, that's the part that burns me. They've always preferred him, I said quietly. I just didn't realize how much until tonight. We pulled into Pop's driveway a little after 1:00 a.m. His house was a small, tidy cabin filled with books and drafting tables. It was quiet, peaceful. You can stay in the guest room as long as you need, Pop said, unlocking the door. But tomorrow, we start work. Work on what? I asked, convincing them. No, Pop said, turning to face me. The porch light cast deep shadows over his wrinkled face, making him look like an old war general. Convincing them is useless. They've made their choice. We are going to show them. He walked over to his desk and booted up his computer. It was a high-end machine, surprisingly modern for a man of his age. Caleb thinks he's clever, Pops muttered, typing in a password. He thinks because he's young and knows how to use TikTok, he's the smartest person in the room. But he's sloppy. He focuses on the flashy stuff and ignores the infrastructure. Pops, what are you talking about? He spun the monitor around. On the screen was a grid of 4 camera feeds. Your father installed the Ring system last year. Caleb knows about those. He avoids them. He sneaks out the back window. Pops pointed a calloused finger at the screen. But 10 years ago, when your father built that home office, he was paranoid about contractors stealing his supplies. He asked me to install a hardwired nanny cam in the bookshelf. A pinhole lens, impossible to see unless you know where to look. My heart hammered against my ribs. Is it still on? Your father forgot the password 5 years ago and stopped checking it. He thinks it's dead, but I set up the server. I pay the hosting fee every year just in case. Pops clicked a file, dated for that afternoon. I haven't watched it yet, he said, his voice grim. I wanted to wait until you were here. Are you ready to see exactly what your brother has been up to? I nodded, my throat tight. Pops hit play. The video on the screen was grainy, rendered in the high-contrast black and white of night vision, but the image was unmistakable. I watched, holding my breath, as the timestamp in the corner rolled back to 4:15 p.m. that afternoon. The frame showed my father's home office. The mahogany desk, the wall of leather-bound books, and the painting of a ship at sea that concealed the wall safe. The door opened. There he is, Pops whispered, his voice vibrating with a suppressed anger that made the air in the small cabin feel heavy. Caleb walked in. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look like a desperate kid in trouble. He looked bored. He was wearing his varsity jacket and chewing gum. He walked straight to the painting, swung it open, and punched in the keypad code without a second of hesitation. "He knows the code," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Dad swore only he and Mom knew it." "Your father uses his birthday for everything," Pops grunted. "A thief wouldn't know that, a son would." On screen, the safe door clicked open. Caleb reached in and pulled out the envelope. He didn't just take it, he opened it right there on the desk. He fanned out the bills, crisp $100 notes meant for the roof repair, and did a little celebratory shimmy. He actually danced. Then came the part that shattered whatever remaining sisterly affection I had left. Caleb walked over to the chair where I usually dumped my backpack when I came in to say hello to Dad. My bag wasn't there in the video, I hadn't come home yet, but Caleb clearly had a plan. He took the stack of cash, separated about $500 from it, and shoved that into his pocket. The rest, the bulk of the $5,000, he rubber-banded back together. He looked directly at the camera, or rather, through it, unaware of its existence, and smirked. He mimed an explosion with his hands, mouthing the word boom. "He set me up," I said, the tears drying up, replaced by a cold, hard knot in my stomach. He didn't just need the money, he needed a SC. Apigoat because he took some for himself and couldn't explain the missing amount. "Watch," Pop said. The video cut to 4:30 p.m. I walked into the room in the video, the past version of me, oblivious and tired. I dropped my bag, I talked to someone in the hallway, probably Mom. I left the room. Immediately, Caleb darted out from behind the curtains where he had been hiding. He shoved the thick stack of bills deep into the bottom of my bag, under my gym clothes. He zipped it up, patted it pathetically, and slipped out of the room. Pops hit the spacebar, freezing the image of my brother, S, fleeing back. "I'm going to kill him," I said, reaching for my phone. "I'm sending this to Dad right now. I'm going to scream at them until they beg for my forgiveness." Pop's hand shot out and clamped over my wrist. His grip was surprisingly strong for a man in his 70s. "No," he said firmly. "What do you mean, no? Pops, I'm homeless. I'm sleeping in your guest room because they think I'm a criminal. This proves I'm innocent." "This proves you didn't take the money," Pops corrected, releasing my wrist but holding my gaze. "But if you send this now, what happens? Your mother cries, your father gets embarrassed. They yell at Caleb. Caleb cries, says he made a mistake, says he was pressured, says he's just a confused boy. And what happens next week?" They let him off the hook," I realized, slumping back in the chair. "They always do." "Exactly. They'll sweep it under the rug to protect the family reputation. They'll apologize to you privately, maybe, but they'll resent you for exposing their golden boy. Nothing changes." "So what do?" I asked, feeling helpless again. "We don't just prove you innocent," Pop said, his eyes narrowing. "We prove him guilty. We find out why he needed that money. We find out where the $500 in his pocket went. We build a case so undeniable, so public, that they cannot look away. We don't use a fly swatter, Jane. We use a hammer." I looked at the frozen image of my brother. I thought about the night I spent in the bus station. I thought about my father dragging me by the arm. I thought about the years of covering for Caleb, doing his homework, lying for him. "Okay," I said, feeling a new kind of strength settling into my bones. "Where do we start?" "He took $500 for himself," Pops mused, "and he needed to frame you for the rest. That means he owes someone serious money, or he bought something he can't show your parents. You know his friends, you know his digital life. Dig." I opened my laptop. I didn't have his passwords, but I knew his habits. Caleb was arrogant. He used the same handle for everything, Caleb the King 99. I started searching. Instagram was clean. TikTok was just him doing stupid dances. But then I went to Venmo. His transactions were private, but his friend list wasn't. I scrolled through the names. Most were kids from our high school, but one name stood out: Kyle R. Kyle was a senior who had graduated 2 years ago. He was known for running a sports book for high schoolers, essentially taking bets on football games and UFC fights. He was bad news. I clicked on Kyle's profile. His transactions were public. 2 days ago, from Caleb the King 99, Part 1 payment. Yesterday, from Caleb the King 99, Part 2, PLZ don't call my dad. I found it, I said, turning the laptop toward Pops. He's gambling, he's betting on sports and he's losing, he owes a bookie. Pops looked at the screen and let out a low whistle. That explains the desperation, and the theft. He stole the emergency fund to pay off a gambling debt, I said, the pieces clicking together. And he kept 500 for walking around money. We have the motive, Pop said, leaning back. Now we wait for the opportunity. The opportunity for contact came 3 days later, but it wasn't the apology I had foolishly hoped for in my weaker moments. I was sitting on Pop's back porch, trying to focus on my calculus homework when my phone buzzed. It was my mother. My heart did that traitorous little flutter, the biological instinct to want your mother, before my brain slammed the door shut. I picked up. Hello. Jane, her voice was clipped, cold. It was the voice she used when speaking to telemarketers. We need the spare key to the garage. Your father can't find his, and we assume you took it with you when you left. I hadn't taken it. It was on the hook by the fridge where it always was, but the accusation stung just the same. I didn't take it, Mom. Check the hook. It's not there, she snapped. Look, we don't want a scene, just bring it by, and pick up the rest of your things. We've packed your closet into boxes. We need the room cleared out. Cleared out? I stood up, my calculus book sliding off my lap. For what? For the guest room, she said, as if it were obvious. Since you've chosen to leave the family, we're converting it. Just come get your boxes. We'll leave them in the driveway, so you don't have to come inside. Chosen to leave. The revisionist history had already begun. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, and hung up before I could scream. Pops drove me. He wanted to come out and yell at them, but I told him to stay in the truck. We're gathering intelligence, I reminded him, quoting his own strategy. Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. He grumbled but agreed. He parked the truck down the street, giving me a clear view of the house but keeping him out of sight. I walked up the driveway. It was surreal. The grass was freshly cut. The flower beds I had planted last spring were blooming. It looked like the perfect American home. There were 4 cardboard boxes sitting on the asphalt near the garage. My life packed away in cardboard. The garage door opened. I stiffened. It wasn't my parents, it was Caleb. He walked out, holding a can of soda, looking relaxed. He leaned against the doorframe, watching me approach. Hey, sis, he said, taking a slurping sip. Rough week. Cut the crap, Caleb, I said, hoisting the first box. It was heavy, mostly books. Where are Mom and Dad? Inside, they didn't want to see you. Too upsetting. He made air quotes with his free hand. He grinned. They're really disappointed in you, Jane. Stealing? That's low. I set the box down and took a step toward him. The rage was a physical thing, a hot coil in my chest. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream. But then I remembered the video. I remembered the Venmo transactions. I had the ace of spades in my pocket, and he didn't even know we were playing cards. How's Kyle? I asked quietly. Caleb's grin faltered. Who? Kyle, I repeated, watching his eyes. You know, the guy you Venmo'd part 1, 2. Did the $5,000 cover the whole debt, or do you still owe him on the Knicks game? Caleb's face went pale. The soda can crinkled in his hand as his grip tightened involuntarily. He looked around nervously, checking to see if the front door was open. I don't know what you're talking about, he hissed, his voice dropping an octave. You're crazy. You're trying to blame me for your crap. And the gloves, I continued, pressing the advantage. Why were you wearing your winter gloves inside the house on Tuesday afternoon? Was it cold in Dad's office? Or were you just trying not to leave fingerprints on the safe? He stepped back, physically recoiling as if I had slapped him. You weren't there. You couldn't see that. I see everything, Caleb, I lied, well, halfway lied. And trust me, looking at you right now, you look guilty as hell. Get your trash and leave, he shouted, his voice cracking. If you come back, I'm calling the cops. Don't worry, I said, picking up the box again. I looked him dead in the eye. I'm leaving, but enjoy the room, Caleb. It's going to get very lonely in this house when the truth comes out. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back, but I could hear him breathing hard, hyperventilating. He was rattled. When I got back to the truck, Pops was waiting. Well, he asked. He cracked, I said, putting the box in the truck bed. He knows that I know. He's going to be paranoid now. He's going to make mistakes. Good, Pop said, putting the truck in gear. Because I just checked the community calendar. You know, the annual summer kickoff barbecue your parents host. Yeah, it's next month. No, Pop said grimly. They moved it up. It's this Saturday. They sent out the email blast this morning. A celebration of family and new beginnings. New beginnings, I scoffed, meaning life without Jane. Exactly, Pop said. They invited the whole neighborhood. My brother, your cousins, the pastor, everyone. Except me. No, not you, Pops agreed. But they invited me, and they invited family. I think it's time we introduce the extended family to the real Caleb. The next 3 days were a masterclass in psychological warfare, although only one side knew a war was happening. Caleb, terrified by my comment about Kyle and the gloves, went on the offensive. He didn't attack me directly, he attacked my reputation. My phone started blowing up with texts from mutual friends, and even a few relatives. Jane, I heard about the drugs. I hope you get help. Your mom told my mom you stole to support a habit. Is that true? Caleb said you threatened him. Stay away from the house, crazy. He was spinning a narrative. He was telling everyone that I wasn't just a thief, but a drug addict. It was a smart move for a desperate liar. It explained why I needed the money, and it discredited anything I might say in the future. If the addict claimed her brother was lying, it was just the drugs talking. I sat at Pop's kitchen table, reading a text from my favorite aunt, asking if I needed a rehab recommendation. My hands were shaking. He's destroying me, I whispered. Pops, by Saturday. There won't be anyone left who speaks to me. He's scorching the earth. Pops was at the stove frying eggs. He didn't turn around. Let him talk. The higher he builds the pedestal of his own virtue, the harder the fall will be. He's overplaying his hand. But Mom and Dad are believing it. They're telling people. Of course they are, Pop said, slamming the spatula down. Because it's easier to believe their daughter is sick than to admit their son is a predator. It absolves them of guilt. If you're an addict, kicking you out was tough love. If you're innocent, then they're monsters. People will always choose the story that makes them the hero. He plated the eggs and sat down opposite me. He placed a USB drive on the table. I've finished editing the footage, he said. Editing, I looked up sharply. You doctored it. No, I compiled it. I pulled the clip of the theft. I pulled the clip of him returning later that night to steal a bottle of your father's scotch. And I pulled a clip from 3 months ago. What happened 3 months ago? You don't remember? Pop smiled, a thin, dangerous line. You were studying in the living room. Caleb came in and asked for help with his history paper. You spent 3 hours writing it for him. He took it, didn't say thank you, and walked away. But the audio on the nanny cam is surprisingly crisp. He tapped the drive. I have him on tape saying, "Thanks, loser. Now I can go play Xbox while you do the work like a good little slave." God, I remember that, I muttered. We need to show the pattern, Pop said. The theft is the crime, but the character, that's what will turn the family against him. The plan for Saturday was simple but high risk. The barbecue was a massive event. My parents had a large backyard with a pool and a fancy outdoor entertainment system. There was a huge weatherproof TV mounted on the patio wall where Dad usually played football games or music videos during parties. The TV has an HDMI port accessible from the side, Pops explained. I've checked the specs. We don't need Wi-Fi, we don't need passwords, we just need physical access. They'll throw me out the second I step on the property, I said. They won't throw me out, Pop said. I'm the grandfather, I'm the elder. If I bring a guest and that guest is quiet, they won't cause a scene in front of the pastor and the neighbors. They care too much about appearances. So I just walk in. You walk in with your head high, you stick to my side, we wait for the speech. The speech. Your father always makes a speech at the kickoff, Pops reminded me. He loves the sound of his own voice. He'll toast to the family, he'll toast to Caleb, and that is when we strike. Friday night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling fan. I felt sick. I felt terrified. But mostly, I felt a deep, profound sadness. I realized that after tomorrow, I wouldn't have parents anymore. Not really. Even if they begged for forgiveness, I didn't think I could ever look at them the same way. They had chosen a lie over their own daughter. They had let my brother assassinate my character without asking a single question. Tomorrow wasn't about reconciliation, it was about justice. And justice, I was learning, was a very lonely road. I rolled over and checked my phone one last time. A new Instagram story from Caleb. It was a selfie of him and Dad grilling steaks. Caption: Real men run the grill. No drama this weekend, just family. I screenshot it. Just wait, Caleb, I whispered to the dark room. Just you wait. The air in the backyard smelled of charcoal smoke, expensive cologne, and hypocrisy. Pops and I walked through the side gate just as the sun was beginning to dip below the treeline, casting long, golden shadows across the manicured lawn. The summer kickoff was in full swing. There were at least 50 people there, neighbors I had grown up with, members of my father's golf club, the pastor from the community church, and a swarm of Caleb's friends near the pool. The conversation died in a ripple effect. It started near the gate and spread inward until the entire party fell into a suffocating silence. The clinking of silverware stopped. The background music, some generic upbeat pop, seemed suddenly deafening. My father was standing near the grill, wearing a kiss the cook apron that felt grotesque given the circumstances. He looked up, his tongs freezing in midair. When he saw me, his face didn't register relief or love. It registered pure, unadulterated anger. He marched over to us, wiping his hands on a towel. My mother was right behind him, her face a mask of social panic. Arthur, my father hissed, ignoring me entirely to address Pops. What the hell is this? You know she isn't welcome here. I was invited, Pops said calmly, his voice projecting just enough for the nearby tables to hear. The invitation said Arthur and family. Last I checked, Jay. Ain is my granddaughter. That makes her family. She is a thief and a drug addict, my mother whispered furiously, her eyes darting to the neighbors who were openly staring. We are not doing this today, not in front of everyone. Jane, go wait in the car. I'm not going anywhere, I said. My voice shook slightly, but I locked my knees to stop them from trembling. I live in a guest room 3 towns over because you threw me out. I think I deserve a hot dog, don't you? You have 5 minutes, my father spat. Grab a plate, eat it in the corner, and then get out before I call the police for trespassing. He turned on his heel and walked back to the patio, clapping his hands loudly. All right, everyone. Sorry for the interruption, just a little family miscommunication. Let's get back to the party. The tension remained thick, but people slowly went back to their conversations. I felt 100 eyes on me. I saw Mrs. Gable, my old piano teacher, shake her head in disappointment as I walked by. I saw my cousin Mike turn his back to me. Caleb had done his work well. To them, I was a pariah. Pops nudged me. Head to the drink station. Keep them occupied. I'm going to the patio. I nodded and walked toward the coolers. Caleb was there. He was holding court with 3 of his friends, laughing loudly. When he saw me approach, he didn't shrink away. He was emboldened by the crowd, by our parents' protection, and by his own perceived victory. Look who crawled back, Caleb sneered, loud enough for the group to hear. Hide your wallets, guys. Sticky Fingers is here. His friends snickered. Enjoying the party, Caleb? I asked, grabbing a soda just to have something to hold. I'm having a great time, he grinned. Dad's about to give the toast. It's going to be all about me. You might want to cover your ears. It's gonna hurt. I'll be listening very closely, I said. A microphone screeched feedback. We all turned to the patio. My father was standing on the raised deck, holding a mic in one hand and a champagne flute in the other. He looked the picture of the benevolent patriarch. If I could have everyone's attention, Dad boomed, his charisma turned up to 11. Thank you all for coming. We've had a challenging week. He cast a meaningful, sad glance in my direction. But times of trial reveal character, and I want to take a moment to honor my son, Caleb. Caleb puffed up his chest, looking around the yard with a smug satisfaction that made my stomach turn. Caleb has stepped up, Dad continued. He's been a rock for his mother and me. He's shown maturity beyond his years. To Caleb. To Caleb, the crowd echoed. My father handed the mic to Caleb. My brother stepped up, basking in the applause. Thanks, Dad, Caleb said, his voice slick. It's been tough, you know. It's hard when people you trust let you down, but we move on. We keep the circle tight. He looked directly at me across the yard, his eyes glinting with malice. And hey, at least I'm not sleeping at a bus station, right? The crowd laughed. It was a cruel, nervous laughter, but they laughed. That was the moment. Behind Caleb, the massive 70-inch outdoor screen flickered. It had been playing a slideshow of family photos, mostly of Caleb. Suddenly, the screen went black. A harsh static noise cut through the speakers, silencing the laughter. Pop stepped out from behind the large potted fern where the HDMI inputs were located. He held his tablet like a weapon. What is that? My mother asked, squinting at the screen. I think, Pop said, his voice booming without a microphone, we should watch a different kind of home movie. He tapped the screen. The video feed from the hidden nanny cam appeared. It was massive, crisp, and undeniable. The entire backyard watched in stunned silence as the time-stamped video showed Caleb walking into the office. They watched him crack the safe. They heard the beep 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 of the keypad amplify through the outdoor speakers. What is this? Caleb shouted, turning around to look at the screen. Turn it off, it's fake, it's AI. But nobody moved. On the screen, Caleb pulled out the money. He fanned it. He did his little celebratory dance. Boom, the recorded Caleb whispered, the sound echoing across the silent lawn. Then came the second clip. The framing. The crowd watched as my brother, the rock of the family, took the stack of cash and shoved it violently into my backpack. They saw him look at the camera and smirk. And then, just for good measure, Pops played the audio clip. Thanks, loser. Now I can go play Xbox while you do the work like a good little slave. The video froze on Caleb's smirking face. The silence in the backyard was absolute. It was heavy, suffocating, and total. My father dropped his champagne flute. It shattered on the patio stones, the sound like a gunshot. He turned slowly to look at Caleb. His face had drained of all color. He looked like he was having a stroke. Caleb, my mother whispered. She was trembling so hard she had to grip the railing. Caleb, what is that? It's fake, Caleb screamed, his voice cracking into a high-pitched squeal of panic. Grandpa made it up. He hates me. He's trying to ruin me. That camera, Pop said, his voice cutting through Caleb's hysteria, has been recording to a cloud server for 10 years, David. You installed it, remember. My father looked at the screen, then at the safe in the video, then at his son. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The specific movements, the code, the behavior, he knew it was real. He knew his son. You stole the money, my father said. His voice wasn't a roar this time. It was a broken, hollow thing. And you blamed your sister. She deserved it, Caleb stammered, backing away as the crowd began to murmur. The murmurs grew into gasps and whispers of disgust. She's always perfect. She always makes me look bad. I needed the money, okay? I owed Kyle. He was going to break my legs. Kyle, my mother put a hand to her mouth. The bookie, you're gambling. You threw her out, Pop said, pointing a finger at my parents. You threw your daughter onto the street in the middle of the night without a single question. You slandered her name to everyone in this yard, all to protect a thief. My father looked at me. For the first time in my life, I saw him look small. He looked at the neighbors who were turning away, disgusted. He looked at the pastor, who was shaking his head. He walked over to Caleb. Caleb flinched, expecting a hit, but Dad just looked at him with a profound, terrifying disappointment. "Get inside," Dad whispered. "Now." Caleb ran. He scrambled through the sliding glass doors like a rat fleeing a sinking ship. My father turned to the crowd. "The party is over, please leave." As the guests began to shuffle out, whispering furiously to one another, my father walked off the deck and came toward me. My mother followed, tears streaming down her face. They stopped 3 feet away. "Jane," my father started, reaching out a hand. I took a step back. "Don't," I said. "Jane, please," my mother sobbed, reaching for me. "We didn't know. We believed him. He's your brother. We thought." "You thought I was a thief," I said, my voice steady and cold. "You thought I was a junkie. You didn't ask me. You didn't check. You just threw me away." "We were wrong," my father said. His eyes were wet. "We were so wrong. We'll fix this. We'll make it right. You can come home. We'll move your things back in tonight. We'll get Caleb help. We'll." "I'm not coming home," I interrupted. The words hung in the air between us. "What?" Mom blinked, confusion warring with her grief. "But this is your home." "No," I said. "A home is where people trust you. A home is where you're safe. I wasn't safe here. I was just a placeholder until you needed someone to blame." I looked at Pops. He was standing beside me, tall and unmoving, a sentinel of truth. "I'm staying with Pops," I said. "I'll finish my senior year there. I'll go to college in the fall. And I will pay for it myself just like I planned." "Jane, you can't be serious," Dad pleaded. "We can pay for college. We can give you everything." "You can't give me back the night I spent in that bus station," I said. "You can't give me back the way you looked at me when you slammed the door." I turned to my mother. "You told everyone I was an addict. You let them look at me like I was garbage." "I'm sorry," she wailed, breaking down completely. "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said softly, "but sorry doesn't fix this. Not yet." I turned and walked toward the gate. Pops put a hand on my shoulder, giving it a firm squeeze. "You coming?" I asked him. "Right behind you, kiddo," he said. He looked at my father one last time. "You broke it, David. You fix it if you can." We left them standing in the empty yard, surrounded by half-eaten food and the wreckage of their reputation. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was absolute. My parents didn't just ground Caleb, they obliterated his life. They pulled him out of school and sent him to a strict therapeutic boarding school in Utah, one that specialized in behavioral issues and gambling addiction. Dad had to cash out a significant portion of his 401k to pay off the bookie, Kyle, to prevent him from physically hurting Caleb, but he also filed a police report against Kyle, getting the guy arrested for racketeering. Caleb's social life evaporated. The video Pops played didn't stay in the backyard. Someone had recorded the screen with their phone. By Monday morning, everyone at school had seen Caleb dancing with the stolen money. He went from the golden child to a laughingstock. As for my parents, they tried. They really did. They showed up at Pop's house every day for a week. They brought my clothes. They brought my favorite foods. They brought checks for my tuition. I didn't take the money, not at first. It took time, a lot of time. I lived with Pops for the rest of the school year. The peace in his small cabin healed me in ways the chaotic luxury of my parents' house never could. We spent evenings playing chess and fixing up his old truck. He never pushed me to forgive them, which ironically made it easier to eventually consider it. On the day of my graduation, my parents were there. They sat in the back, far away from Pops and me, respecting the boundary I had set. When I walked across the stage, I saw them standing up, clapping until their hands must have hurt. After the ceremony, I met them in the parking lot. My dad looked older. My mom looked tired. They looked humble. "Congratulations, Jane," Dad said, keeping a respectful distance. "We are so proud of you." "Thank you," I said. There was an awkward silence. "We miss you," Mom said quietly. It's very quiet." I looked at them. I saw the regret etched into their faces. I realized that holding onto the hate was heavy, and I was tired of carrying it. I wasn't ready to move back in, and I wasn't ready to pretend everything was fine. But I was ready to stop bleeding. "I'm going to have a graduation dinner at Pop's place," I said. "Burgers and hot dogs, nothing fancy." They waited, hope flickering in their eyes. "If you want to come," I said, "you can, but Caleb isn't invited." "He's still in Utah," Dad said quickly. "He won't be back for a long time." "Okay," I said. I took a deep breath and let it out. "Then I'll see you there. 6:00 p.m. My mother burst into tears and took a step forward but stopped herself. She just nodded, wiping her eyes. "We'll be there. We'll bring the cake." I walked back to Pop's truck. He was waiting in the driver's seat, watching the rearview mirror. "You invited them?" he asked as I climbed in. "Yeah," I said, buckling my seatbelt. "Good," Pop said, turning the key. "You're a better person than they are, Jane. Never forget that." "I won't," I said. I looked out the window as we drove away, leaving the high school and the past behind me. I had lost my home, but I had found my voice. I had found my strength. And most importantly, I had found the one person who would never let me fall. I looked over at Pops and smiled. "Let's go home," I said.